So let's model one of the centerpiece leaves. I've chosen this example, and you can see something very similar on a real piece of furniture right here. And this leaf is quite similar except for these sides we have here. And I'm gonna model it in a way that you can detach these sides and use either only the center part or the whole thing altogether. So as usual, I'm going to start by tracing the rough outline of the object. And here I'm gonna make these cuts a bit deeper than they appear in the reference. I'm gonna overlap these parts, and I convert this model to a 3D shape. Okay, so just roughly trace the main shapes. And over here, I'm gonna go around this part like this, and I'm gonna bring it down under these leaves a bit later on. Okay, move this segment a bit to the left, so it's right in the center. Okay. Now let's set all the vertices to corner type and collapse to editable poly. And now I have to cut in the main lines of the model. I'm going to start right here. And cut in something like this. Okay, one for the center. That's fine for now. And let's cut in some main lines over here. And I'm gonna try and follow the overall shape of the object. Like that. And using my shortcut for the connect tool, I'm gonna go ahead and connect some of the vertices to form a nice grid. Make sure everything is nice and smooth. Okay, try to make it rounded. Make sure you connect to the centerpiece or the center line. Something's a bit wrong here. Alright, I'm gonna cut in a new edge over here since there were some problems with the old one. Sometimes it happens when you connect more than two vertices at a time. It makes a weird connection and creates these large polygons that are slightly deformed and overlapping with other polys. And we really don't want that. So it's best to connect only two vertices at a time. It's a bit slower, but as long as you can avoid some problem areas, it might be worth it. Just keep connecting, try to make a nice grid with mostly four-sided polygons. It's okay if you have some with more or less sides, like 3 or 5. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, so what's left? Have to finish up this area here. Okay, I'm gonna end it right there for now and finish it up once we have the shape in 3D. And looks like we're missing some edges here, so I'm just gonna cut until this little hole. Make the surrounding edges nice and curved, following the overall shape. And keep connecting. I'm gonna leave these triangles there for now, and we'll see if they cause any problems, and if they do, I'm gonna try and fix them. But if they don't, there's no need to bother. Alright, so looks like our grid is starting to look better. And we can try and make the shape a bit more 3D. Okay, so let's start with this area over here. And what we have to do is bring this whole thing slightly backwards. I mean these polys. I'm also going to enable the soft selection with the edge distance enabled. Okay, and just move slightly backwards. Check from the top, maybe rotate a bit, and moving the vertices, and let's try to get the shape right, like this. Okay, this vertex is unneeded, so I'm going to remove it. I'm going to slightly modify it. Okay, let's check from perspective. That's fine. Now we're gonna move this leaf forward. And the central leaf as well. Or actually it looks like we probably should move it backwards. Okay, like this. So all these leaves are sort of in layers, and we can make them overlapping. And just like in the reference. Okay, I'm gonna cut this a bit more to make a larger seam here. And extend it behind a larger leaf. So like this. Make sure nothing is overlapping. That's nice. And tweak the whole shape a bit manually. I'm just trying to get some basic curves at the moment. And from the reference you can see this part should be probably rounder, as you can see from the shading here. So I'm going to bring these edges backwards. Try to make it nice and smooth. All right, that's a bit better. Okay, this part looks a bit weird. I think there might be too many polys here. So I'm going to simplify it a little bit by removing some edges. Basically, you want to get by with the minimum amount of polygons possible to create a smooth shape. The less vertices you have to move, the easier it is to create a nice rounded shape. Sometimes it's a bit hard to find the right balance between enough detail and enough poly count, so it's still easy to adjust, but with some experience you get better at it. Okay, let's add some symmetry. Flip it around, move the axis to the correct position. And check how it looks. I think this central part could be brought out a little bit. I'm just going to throw on an FFD 4x4. Actually, just delete that and add a regular FFD box modifier and set the length or width in this case to a slightly higher point count. Okay, so something like 8. And modify the shape a little bit to make it a bit more interesting. So that's looking a bit better. Let's collapse to editable poly. Let's round this top part a bit. Looks slightly weird at the moment. All right. Let's draw on some symmetry. First I'm going to center the pivot point. And then I'm going to add some symmetry. Add some edit poly to check how it looks with extruded border. And just a quick test. And throw on the turbo smooth to finish it up. As you can see, the shape is still a bit too rough, and we need to polish it some more. Okay, so first of all, it looks like this part needs to be sharper. So I'm going to bring some vertices closer to it. And move these edges out to give a curve to this leaf. So like that. Maybe let's cut in some detail over here. Move this out as well. Okay, that's a bit better. And now we're gonna try and extrude these parts out a bit. So first I'm gonna extrude the whole thing. Okay, just a little bit. And then I'm gonna deselect these parts and extrude a couple of times again. Okay, let's target all this end down to make it thinner. Let's get rid of this edit poly above symmetry. And now let's give it some more shape by moving some edges. Okay, that's nice. I'm gonna select these vertices. I'm gonna flatten this area by scaling on the y-axis, and I'm gonna move them outwards a bit. Okay, that's nice. So let's add some detail in the center part. I'm going to start by adding some edges over here. Okay, so let's connect, and I'm gonna move these out a bit. And especially on the bottom part here. So that's looking better. And the end point is a bit too round at the moment. So you're gonna fix that by adding some more edges over here. And bringing these vertices closer to the endpoint. Actually, you can just modify one end, and the other one will be modified automatically with the symmetry modifier. So that's nice and pointy. Okay, let's give some shape to this element. I'm going to select these edges and move them outwards a bit. Looking better. And finally, let's make this little cut in here. Just by extruding these inwards a little bit. And scaling them down like this. And I'm also going to chamfer this edge on the corner to sharpen it up a bit. Okay, target all this here. It looks a bit too flat in here, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select some of these edges and move them inwards to round out this whole area. So like that. Okay, let's try to add some edit poly above the symmetry modifier. Select the outline and extrude it just a couple of times. To create the finished model. Right, so that's the basic version. With the full version, let's create another version, just a bit more basic. So above symmetry, I'm going to delete this edit poly, add another one, and delete just everything over here. and these side elements. Okay, now all that's left to do is selecting these vertices, flattening them out. Maybe scaling a bit smaller. You can see that you quickly can modify some of your ornaments into simplified versions like this, just by getting rid of some of the elements, and then adjusting the shape slightly to fit better with the new shape. Okay, like that. And if you want a pointy end here, you can just select this top row of edges, Shift plus extrude it up, and make a nice centerpiece like this easily. All that's left is extruding a couple of times. And here you can see the full version, which could probably be still slightly modified, especially on the top here. It's a bit too flat. Okay, that's a bit better. And here's the modified or simplified version, which can also be used as a nice centerpiece in many cases. Okay, so just add a little sphere over here. Copy the whole thing down. Scale it smaller. And this sort of ornament is used all the time with these centerpiece leaves and some spheres. It's quite a common combination. Okay, so that's your centerpiece leaf.